So again, my name is Kelsey Conlan. I'm a speech language pathologist who is completing my LEND fellowship at JFK Partners. I am a member of the American Speech Language and Hearing Association, and I received federal grant funding for my entire fellowship year. Here are some of our learning objectives. We are going to go through quite a bit of information today, so I hope that each and every one of you can find some piece that sort of sticks with you today. I want to get down to the basics though right away to make sure that we're all on the same page. AAC refers to augmentative and alternative communication, and it can be any mode of communication to express our thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. We think of it as being augmentative or an additional form to supplement verbal speech, as well as alternative, meaning that it's something that's used in place of verbal speech. So now I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll for today. And that is, have you used AAC? So go ahead and check a box, as many as fits your best personality and your perspectives. And then if you'd like in the chat, reflect a little bit about what's easiest with communicating with your child or student or communication partner. And where do you find those challenges or breakdowns that occur with communication? I'll give us here another 20 seconds or so because I see several people have already responded. And we definitely have some experienced AAC users today. Great. And I will share the results with you so everyone can see. So it looks like many of us have used either an iPad or some sort of tablet. Some have used signing, and then others have used pictures or communication board. And we do have some new people who are new to the AAC world as well. All right. So I'm going to briefly go over the spectrum of types of systems. A note here is that all of these are different tools or ways that we communicate. There's not a hierarchy of what we need to master first before graduating on to something else. So first I'll talk about the no-tech AAC. There is what we refer to as unaided, so meaning gestures, body language, facial expressions, or manual signing. I do want to make the differentiation between manual signing and American Sign Language, as American Sign Language does have a complete language system, including its own use of grammar and sentence structure too. Then we also have aided forms of no-tech AAC, so writing or typing, using a communication board or some sort of picture system. Low or light text AAC is what we might consider to be like a switch technology, like a Big Mac as you see in the picture, or maybe a multiple message generating device. And then perhaps what people may be most familiar with are those high-tech speech generating devices. They typically have a dynamic display, meaning as you press the button, a new set of items may come up. We all use multiple modes of communication every single day. We all use AAC. But what specifies an AAC user is someone who relies on AAC consistently. No matter what, we want to make sure that our children have access to a robust system of language and can communicate not only their basic needs, but their interests, their hopes, and dreams to anyone at any time. Next, I want to go through and debunk some commonly held myths about AAC. The first one being a myth that professionals have tried to debunk for decades, which is, will AAC hinder speech? This is just not true. And in fact, research tells us that the opposite is true. A meta-analysis done in 2006 showed that 89% of AAC users made improvement with speech, and the other 11% of the AAC users in that study had no change. Children will always go towards what is most efficient for them. And by using AAC, we provide more opportunities to communicate in ways that the child needs in that moment. There are no cognitive, visual, linguistic, or physical requirements that a person must have in order to benefit from the use of AAC. We should provide any means of communication. But we might need to get creative with how our children are accessing their system. For example, they may be most successful through eye gaze, or maybe a switch from their elbow or from their foot. We might need to use high contrast visuals. This is where a team approach using professionals like occupational therapists, physical therapists, or vision specialists are incredibly helpful. In addition, our students do not need to master one system before moving on to a next or graduating onto the next system. In fact, we really should try to start high from the beginning so that whatever form or system best works with them at the moment is able to grow with them and they're able to use a robust system of language. The purpose of AAC is to allow individuals to communicate with others that they're understood. We want to promote self-determination so that people can voice their thoughts, not just what they need in a particular moment. AAC is not a menu at McDonald's. And even when we are at McDonald's, we don't just ask for French fries. We talk about how good those French fries are, or we talk about how our day's been going. So requesting is just one piece of that. Ultimately, though, communication is a fundamental human right that each individual has. And so if anyone is not familiar with the National Joint Committee for the Communication Needs of Persons with Severe Disabilities Communication Bill of Rights, I would highly encourage you to review that chart. And Kate Ahern, who is a pioneer in the field of AAC, created a very adaptable version using simple language and images as well. When we're thinking about the Communication Bill of Rights, we have to consider all of the ways that we communicate. Remember, AAC is not a menu, and it's not designed for us to just go around and label objects around our environment like we're a dictionary. Most often when we're talking to one another, we're sharing information, we're telling a joke. Maybe it's a funny story, or we're just connecting on that human-to-human basis. I love this visual because it reminds us of all of the reasons that we communicate. And you might even find new ways that your child or student are communicating too. So for example, how does your child show you that they love their favorite song or that they're having fun in the snow? How do they show you when they are not thrilled to wake up early or they're super bored with a lesson? Often with AAC, we can get stuck in requesting land, and empowering others to advocate for their needs to be met is so important. But we also want them to express their feelings, socialize, make choices, refuse, protest, get attention. If all we did was request things we needed all day long, we would miss out on the joys of communicating. Unfortunately, what we tend to run into with AAC users is a high rate of abandonment of AAC systems. This is because without efforts on our part, it won't become effective communication. Bruce Baker, who is the creator of MinSpeak and truly an icon in the field of AAC, created this principle that says that our motivation to send a message must be greater than the total cognitive, linguistic, and physical efforts that we use to create that message. We can apply this beyond AAC. If we are too tired at the end of a long day to answer a question, we might not. We need to be in the mood, have the time, and find it worth the effort. Communication is power, but we need to be able to use that power. If I ask a student, how was your summer break? And their parent or their teacher responds, oh, tell her about the dolphins you saw, or tell her he went to the beach. The motivation and power of communication has just disappeared. Why would they go through all of that effort when we just took the power of sharing that new and exciting thing with someone? We all come from a really good place, but helping in this way makes the communication not quite as authentic. That person didn't get to share what they wanted to share. So our goal is twofold. We want to continue to motivate others by acknowledging that they are understood and minimize the efforts that it takes to produce an utterance. Communication involves work by both communication partners, no matter what mode we're using. We want to make sure that we model our verbal language by speaking and using keywords or phrases on the AAC device or system all the time, but especially during those predictable and repetitive daily routines and activities like meal times or playing or getting dressed. Aided language stimulation is one of the names of an evidence-based practice that basically means teaching AAC while using AAC. giving the same input as the output our children are expected to have. An SLP named Jane Corsten noted that by 18 months old, toddlers have heard over 4,000 hours of spoken language among thousands and thousands of words. But we don't expect toddlers to be fluent. Similarly, if our AAC users were only exposed to others using AAC for their weekly hour-long speech and language therapy sessions, it would take them 84 years to have the same exposure to language as that 18-month-old has had. When we think about AAC and teaching AAC, it's really the same or very similar to learning a second language. The best way to learn a second language is by hearing it and speaking it all the time, becoming totally immersed in that other language. We should be modeling AAC all the time with different people in different places for different reasons, just like how we speak all the time. But if all we do is practice ordering lunch with one person, we'll get really good at ordering that one lunch with that one person, but we won't learn all of the other joys of communicating. We won't learn how to ask for directions or how to share that funny knock knock joke, how to learn about someone else. We may not be totally sure what our kids, our students, our communication partners want to say, and that's okay. When they point to something and we're not totally sure, we're just going to give them some of that language input to give them an option of what they might want to say. Next, we have my favorite AAC video of all time. It's actually been translated into Spanish as well.
Created.
Awesome. So I love that video. I think it's just does a fantastic job of really explaining that day-to-day importance of modeling. And again, modeling for many different types of communication. I was able to briefly look at the chat here just during the video and saw some fantastic ideas and experiences. So please keep sharing them. I'm hoping that we'll have some time at the end to talk a little bit more about questions or stories, but the more that you're able to share those experiences is just invaluable. So thank you. A huge element of aided language stimulation is that we're modeling on the AAC system without expectations, which essentially imitates natural language development. We want to be teaching new words, not testing what they mean. If we think our child is looking for a word, we can help by pointing to it. Don't add stress or pressure by demanding compliance. We want our children, our students, our peers to be able to start conversations with us, not always to be in that responding role. Follow their lead to see what they're most passionate about communicating. AAC is not an activity. It's a tool for us to communicate. So use AAC while you're outside on a walk or on a hike, when you're baking a cake, or during that super cool science experiment. We know from research that hands-on activities, rather than just observing like a bystander, really help our learning. And we want to be modeling just like we're talking, like we do in conversations. Don't feel that pressure to have your child have to use the device. They might feel more comfortable communicating through other modes of communication, like their gestures and facial expressions. And slowly but surely, hopefully they'll be able to find the most effective system of communication for themselves. But you can show them how to use it. Ultimately, we want to be modeling AAC to connect with our children and students about shared interests. If they imitate what you say because they're interested and they want to, that's awesome. But we're still just giving them the language and the input that they might need so that they can use their own voice. I love this meme from Andy and Laura. This says, "Be your kids Morgan Freeman. Narrate their lives as if they were penguins," from the documentary March of the Penguins. Give them that language input. Next, I'm going to go ahead and launch our next poll. And so instead of asking, what is this? I'd love for everyone here to think about an option for what else they could model instead. So go ahead, you can pick your favorite option and we'll chat about it a little bit. If you have other ideas, go ahead and do that too. Great, and I'm seeing some great responses coming in. There's so many ways we could talk about this dog or any animal, anything. That's what I love about communication. I'll give us another 20 seconds or so. Okay, I see most of the people have responded, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. And you guys can see what everyone loved. So the winner today was, whoa, that's a big furry dog. Or look, it's a dog. Those are great ones. And here you can see just all of the different ways that we might use to communicate and talk about that. In orange are words that I would consider modeling on the AAC device or system. But really, whatever you want to model and whatever you think is best, you're absolutely welcome to model. We want everyone to be able to observe the grammar and the sentence structure that goes into language. But it can be intimidating to go ahead and find all those words. So finding a key word or two, at least in the beginning, is an important thing to consider. Now that we have an idea about modeling and the ways that we can use language in a variety of different ways, we have to make sure that we have our students' attention and their buy-in. We should be using their favorite topics and interests to motivate them. For some, that might be characters on their favorite TV show, while for others, it might be animals or science or environmental activism. While requesting is an easy place to start, it isn't always worth the effort for some of us. So for example, if we're offered a choice between goldfish and Cheez-Its, well, they're both salty, cheesy snacks. It's not that big of a difference, really. The unknown is where that power of communication lies. Social motivation invites your children, your students, your peers to be able to tell you about the trampoline that they were able to jump on or how their birthday party went the weekend before. We want to find those topics that our students get excited about. By using what they're most interested in and what excites them, they'll naturally have so many more opportunities to comment and share enjoyment. And that is what creates our learning. S'mores are one of my favorite desserts and one of my favorite acronyms to remember how to be a good communication partner. First and foremost, we need to slow down how much input we're giving at a time and offer a lot of wait time. Of course, I do a terrible job of this during the presentation, but I promise I'm good at slowing down and providing wait time while I am modeling and having that conversation. The MO here is to model, 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 as we talked about before. Point to the symbol on your child's system while you're speaking. Provide several models of a word or a phrase to increase the number of exposures. You'll probably notice that if you type in the same phrase, like I see dog, you'll actually become so much faster at producing it. That's what's called motor planning at work. The same way that because we always type and those symbols stay in the same place on our keyboard, we can type pretty fast. Next, we also want to respect whatever mode of communication it is that your child is using, whether that's through a gesture, a facial expression, some sort of vocalization. Honor that. Then we might reflect back and model a word or a phrase to communicate that same thought or feeling without making the child repeat themselves. So for example, if you notice that a child is making a pretty yucky face after maybe tasting some kale, you might say, ooh, you don't like that. I can see it on your face. We want to expand what a student says too. This means we add an extra word. So if they say go, we might say go down, or I go, or go fast. The opportunities are endless, so just think about what your child or student might be the most interested in. Finally, stop is there a reminder to add more wait time through an expectant pause after you model, so your child has an opportunity to be able to communicate back to you as well. Here are just some more ways that we can be a great communication partner. Again, a big proponent here is to slow down and wait to offer that additional time for a child or an individual to be able to process what's been said and what they want to say or how they want to say it. We want kids to have a chance to communicate what they want to communicate. So following their lead, letting them start conversations is just so important. We also want to be present. So look for your individual child or student sign and signal that they're about to communicate, and just wait. Be present in that conversation. Don't talk while they're activating their message. We want to ask genuine questions too. So not those test questions like, what is this from the picture before, but really asking questions where we don't know the answer. This offers so many more opportunities to connect. And as a communication partner, we do want to ensure that we're connecting on the relationship level with others. We all use AAC all the time. We use tons of different methods like body language, facial expressions, as well as typing or texting, and even emojis too. Right now, I'm using several modes of communication to connect with you all, as you all are using different modes of communication to connect with me. We want to make sure that we acknowledge all attempts and all modes of communication. If what your child or student says doesn't quite make sense to you immediately, try to give it some meaning and talk about it a bit more. Even showing objects or pictures to see about how you can best repair that breakdown. Respecting all communication helps with the speed and efficiency problem of AAC. It might be so much faster to be able to just do a quick eye roll to communicate. So we want to respect that. Reflect another option for what your child or student is saying to communicate with you, but don't expect them to imitate that word or that phrase on their system. You're just reflecting another option. But here we're giving tons and tons of opportunities to learn. We don't need them to respond exactly the way we think they want them to respond. The goal for AAC and the goal for any type of communication is autonomous or independent communication, helping the individual find their own voice. So next, I'm going to chat a little bit about what types of words we can use and why. So first, let's think about this scenario that unfortunately I've been in myself, where you're about to drive home and realize you locked your keys in your car. You go ahead and call to ask for help and say, Toyota RAV4, model number SC950123, or silver grooves, silver grooves, silver grooves. Or You could call and ask for help and say, help, oh no, can't go, in there. The second response that uses general functional words is going to let someone know that you're in some sort of distress and that you really need assistance. But that specific terminology about your car doesn't exactly lend itself to help. So it's a great segue into our core vocabulary. Did you know that there are about 300 words that make up approximately 80% of our language? These are our core words. They are high frequency, flexible words that we can use in many different ways. We tend to think of these as being pretty general words like I, can, do, at, in, and out. We can make up a lot of sentences with these words rather than with those specific nouns like books, bubbles, or blocks. Because we can use core words in many different ways across different people and different situations, it helps us build vocabulary and generalize language to many activities and many routines. A huge aspect of quickly accessing these words we use all the time is motor planning. I hinted at this earlier, but we keep words and symbols in the exact same spot so that we're able to find it without as much effort, and we're able to find it really quickly. Just think about typing on your computer or texting on your phone. If those letters moved around every week or every couple of months, you would have a much harder time being able to type out your message. Similarly, when I go through those updates of like switching my phone to a new phone and I have to find an app, it takes me so much longer to find where it is if it's moved around in its place. So this is our motor memory at work. Additionally, research tells us that core words can be unique to each family. And if you feel comfortable, feel free to type in the chat box 1 to 3 words, or maybe a short phrase that you find yourself saying all day long. Perhaps it's changed a bit since the pandemic. So for me, can you hear me? Or I can't see you are some of my most commonly used phrases at this point. And I love this book by Randall Munroe. He decided to take these high frequency words of core vocabulary to the extreme and wrote a book explaining a variety of technical concepts, only using the 1,000 or 1,000, as he calls it, most frequent words, so that the explanations were as simple as possible. So for example, he talks about those boxes that make your clothes smell better as washers and dryers, or the bags of stuff inside of you as cells. I love that his descriptions include these flexible words because it shows the power and importance of getting the most bang for your buck with communication. And if you're interested in this a little bit further, I would suggest that you follow Dr. Gail Van Tatenhoven's work on the descriptive teaching model. This is an evidence-based teaching approach that essentially uses core vocabulary to describe many concepts within academics or just within life. So while we could write a book only using high frequency words, we might save some time and also increase the motivation by using fringe vocabulary. The other about 20% of our everyday speech are these motivating nouns and descriptions, like characters on a TV show, academic vocabulary, or your favorite breakfast items. I'll give you an example of that 80-20 rule. So if I order my favorite drink at Starbucks, I might say, I want a cold brew. The first 3 words are core, I want a, and the last word is that drink that I want, cold brew. So we get a lot of that context. We get to be able to use those words flexibly, but we also get to explain exactly what it is that we want rather than just going through and saying, not this, not this, not this. Oh yes, this. We all deserve access to hear new words. We don't limit what speaking children hear, so we shouldn't limit what an AAC user's vocabulary looks like either. But when we do think about the big picture, we want to make sure that those fringe words or those specific nouns and descriptions are only about 20% of what we model, so that we're able to describe those concepts and vocabulary through a combination of mostly using those high frequency, flexible core words to encourage just being able to use communication in a variety of ways. Remember here that, again, we are not communicating to request, and label objects like a dictionary. We're communicating to connect and share new information. So I'm going to launch another poll here. And I want here for everyone to pick out the high frequency flexible core words. So there should be multiple options here, and I want you to think about which ones are flexible in their use. Great, we'll give it another 5 to 10 seconds. These are some awesome responses here. Awesome, and I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. So I was not able to fool anyone. COVID-19, although it may unfortunately be a more high frequency word, it is not flexible. We don't use it for multiple purposes. Fantastic. So here is a quick video to show a combination of core and fringe words being modeled. And we're just going to watch a brief portion.
Use AAC to teach AAC.
Ready, set, go! Look, I like this book. Ah, look, we go to places, more outdoor places. Beach.
We go to beach.
We went to the beach.
Expect that they will know how to.
There we go. So just another example there of modeling not only core words, but also a fringe word. So beach is a fringe word, and it's fun to share that, yes, we did go to the beach. But by now we've learned a little bit about the importance of slowing down, providing that wait time, and modeling without expectations on an AAC system. We've also learned about connecting with your child or student or individual. But another huge piece of AAC is increasing the access your child has to their system within as many environments as possible. Access to AAC can be tricky during some routines, like when you're running around and playing on the playground outside. While we should encourage the student to bring their device or their system with them, having large boards like these can promote inclusion. I love here the combination of the core words like I, my, me, what, where, who, as well as those fringe words that kids use all the time, like bike or bubbles or slide to describe what they want to do next. Kate McLaughlin of the AAC Coach has these fantastic ideas to be able to use to model without expectations. We know from research that buy-in and social participation increases when we use age-appropriate language that the child or student would use. The same goes for older students. They need to be involved with modifying their vocabulary to include slang and phrases that someone their age would communicate. TikTok might be a great way to be able to get that vocabulary in there too. Daily routines are fantastic to incorporate language because they're filled with predictable, repetitive language that we use all the time. We know from research that embedding AAC into existing routines rather than practicing it like homework is much more effective. This is because we create those associations between objects, pictures, and what we do every single day with the words and language that we're using. Again, here are some great ideas for what you might model on an AAC system during routines like getting dressed. I'll point out just a few, but these will be available in the handouts later, and the AAC Coach has a variety of free downloadable handouts, including opportunities for screen readers to use these as well. So there's comments like, look good, or you fancy. I think these are just fun ways to enjoy the joys of communicating. And we have one other poll here. So we talked a little bit about routines, and I would love for, There we go. And so I would love for you all to think about what school or home routine you might see yourself being able to use that modeling of language the most. Great, and I'm seeing some awesome responses. We'll give it another 10 seconds or so, and then I'll go ahead and share. Awesome. And so looking at the results here, looks like the winner was mealtime. This is some of my favorite opportunities too. We all just loved talking. And what's great about AAC is you've got food in your mouth and you can still talk and have a full conversation. So isn't that pretty handy? Morning routine is another great one, and transitions out in the community, I think is so important too. Fantastic. So we know that children who are exposed to multiple languages need access to all of these languages at all times. We need to make sure that we include a child's home language. Otherwise, we're limiting who our students can communicate with. Research also tells us that we need to include family-specific vocabulary. So we might choose to invite family members to be able to review the vocabulary on their own to make sure it best fits within their family unit. An important reminder here is that words do not always translate the exact same way, and we need to consider the cultural opportunities to be able to communicate together. It should make sense with what that family needs and what that individual needs. And then here below, I have just two examples of what the home core page might look like in traditional Chinese as well as in Spanish. A really neat feature on some of these high-tech systems is that you can actually create a bilingual toggle button on programs such as Chat that you see today to be able to go back and forth quite easily. So it just looks like a little symbol, say like right here, where you might have Espanol for Spanish, and you're able to go and code switch, just like bilingual individuals code switch when they're speaking inside their head. In addition to representing multiple languages, our students' AAC systems should reflect their own identity and their own culture. In just a minute, I'm going to share a short video about changing the skin tone on those high-tech vocabularies like Prolo Quo to Go. You can actually modify symbols to reflect the gender that your student identifies with, and several vocabularies have included gender-neutral pronouns to their core vocabulary too. We know that voice can be a huge buy-in for our students and children. So rather than those incredibly robotic sounding voices, which might work for some students, we also have many different opportunities to personalize voices. So Vocal ID is one organization that allows you to donate your voice by saying a series of different words. And it's commonly used by siblings of different children too, so that that child may have a voice that sounds much more age appropriate to them, or it sounds within their family. What's really neat is the a cappella group created the first Black voice named Tamira, who is the first member of the new AAVE family. It's available through most high-tech systems. And so again, just thinking about the way that we can use an individual's AAC system to represent themselves will not only just increase that buy-in, increase that participation, but makes it that much more meaningful and makes it that person's voice. If anyone has any further questions too, I'm happy to chat about that a little bit later. But I wanted to go ahead and share this. Let's see, I'm gonna go back there. There we go. So next I'm gonna show this video that shows you how to change the skin tone in Prolo Quo to Go. So you can select between 5 different skin tones to change, to change the appearance of all symbols. So you go into your settings, you click the skin tone that best matches your AAC user, and then it should change all of the symbols on there. You can also go through appearance there too. And this is available on most of the high-tech systems, but I love that these companies are starting to come out with much more opportunities to be able to support our diverse needs of many different AAC users. Next, we want to talk a bit about when things just do not go as planned. So, for example, when you cannot find the word that you want, first think about it. Is it a high frequency flexible core word, or is it a really specific fringe word that maybe someone's going to use once or twice total? I've heard someone call them recyclable words because we just don't use them all the time. So first consider substituting a synonym for that core word with a similar meaning to be able to get that message out as efficient as possible. We also can be thinking aloud. So this means that we're talking about how we go and find a word. So for example, if I'm thinking, I want to find jump. Well, this is an action. It's something that I do. Oh, wait, all those action words are in green. Okay, I'm going to look for a green word. This helps our students, helps our individuals think on their own to be able to go through that problem solving process. Many systems also have a word finder. So this is a specific button on a vocabulary where you're able to go and say, okay, I'm going to type in this word, I'm going to spell it out, and then I'm going to go see that path to how to find it exactly. This is a great thing to show our students too. And spelling and literacy is just a huge element of AAC. We really should be promoting and teaching literacy to all of our students, regardless of their linguistic strengths or challenges. Another common issue, unfortunately, is if the system is not working for some reason or it's just not available to students. So I'll talk about if it just isn't working first. And first, I would encourage you to troubleshoot as much as you can or reach out to the AAC device company as well. But we should be showing our children and our students how to use their AAC system in its operational capacity. So that means showing them how to change the volume or how to go through guided access, how to go through all of these different things if they want to add a new word, for example. We also should have some sort of a backup of communication so that we're not without communication totally. Maybe this is a low-tech printout of that home page and that core system for our child or our students' vocabulary. Or maybe we use some sort of partner-assisted communication, such as using an AEIOU board, using choices, or something of the sort that works best for you. And then additionally, something that can occur quite a bit is that children or students might hit the same button over and over again. A great way to think about this is that it's similar to babbling, that we are exploring that system, and that is totally okay. We should respond how we would respond to a speaking child in that situation. But we can also use different ideas, such as maybe changing the settings and adding an interaction timing of at least a 1 second delay. So you have to hit it, and then it waits 1 more second before it hits out again. That way we can hear the whole word or the whole phrase, and it doesn't just go banana. We also want to talk about how maybe it's listening time, or consider using a low-tech visual of a listening ear, or taking a deep breath if that's what's most appropriate in that environment. But regardless, we should not be taking away the device the same way we wouldn't tape a child's mouth. We should acknowledge their response. So maybe if they're hitting all of the different planets, we talk about, oh, looks like you really love the planets. Let's watch a short video about the planets. We can also clarify or expand what they're saying too. So wait a second, we were talking about Pete the cat. Use AAC to be able to repair those breakdowns as they occur. Another phrase I had heard in a presentation was, oh, I know that, old news, tell me more. and expand their statements as well to make sure that we are interested in what they're interested in. It goes back to that piece of following a child's lead. Something else that might occur is, what do I do when my student doesn't seem to be paying attention? Tracy Campbell created this fantastic graphic that describes how attention might look different for different people. A huge takeaway from this is that we still need to model and become confident users with AAC. We don't just stop talking when our children are moving away. We're building connections, we're building relationships here. That is ultimately the most important part of communication. And we're showing how we can use that AAC system to start a conversation with others, but we're not demanding that they blanketly repeat back what we're doing. In order for communication to be valid and meaningful, it needs to be that person's unique thoughts, not a repetition of what we think they want them to say, or what we think they want to say, or what we want them to say. The most important stakeholders in AAC are not only families, but the individuals who use the AAC systems. I've been fortunate enough to speak with several AAC users and have researched to include AAC users' perspectives of what's most important for speaking individuals to know and to do. Some of the biggest components are just being a great communication partner. So being respectful, which might look like not talking over the person as they type out their message, waiting until they're done generating that message, and most importantly, listening to what that individual wants and what they need. Honoring all forms of communication goes back to the fundamental principle that AAC is just a tool. It's one modality that we use to communicate. Whatever is most efficient for that person to use is what they'll use, and we need to respect that. Below are several great AAC resources for more information. Some are more local to Colorado, while others are across the country. If you hold up your smartphone's camera, you can actually scan this QR code and it'll link you to a resource tablet that's filled with some great websites as well as videos, including those that I shared today. This will also be available in the post-presentation survey through a link. So you don't need to scan it now if you don't think that you have the time. But there's just so much fantastic information out there and so much fantastic free information. So today is really just an introduction of what AAC is and how we might use the fundamental methods of communication to connect with others. But for more information, I highly encourage you to look at some of these resources here. Finally, some take-home points and sort of summarizing what we talked about today. We want to model, model, model. I want you to model without expectations of your child repeating back exactly what you say, but just giving them that input the same way we talk all day long. And we want to model to connect with people. We need to slow down and take the time to let your child, your student, your colleague be able to process what's been said and formulate their response. We also want to follow your child or your student's lead. They might be communicating so much more than you're realizing. Let them know that they're heard and that they are understood. And most importantly, have fun. Build those connections and enjoy the interactions that you have with your child or with your student. Communication is much more than requesting. And then finally, I've had so much support while creating this presentation. And so I want to acknowledge the great efforts from Dr. Philip Blanca of the University of Virginia, Maureen Castillo of Adams 12 5-star schools, and of course, JFK Partners and the University of Colorado Anschutz School of Medicine, Speech Language Pathology Department. We will have a brief survey for you to fill out discussing the information you gathered from the presentation, and you'll receive this via email. This is totally optional, and it's just a way for us to get to see, kind of for our own sake, how this presentation worked. And if you have any feedback, I would love to hear it as well. So thank you so much in advance for filling this out. And it looks like we have about 8 minutes or so to talk about some questions. So I'm going to monitor the chat right now to see if there's been anything in there that I can look at. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free either to unmute or to type them in the chat box. So let's see, Jessica Howard, my son is a faster typer than he can write or speak, but communication can break down when he's frustrated. Absolutely. An important piece, oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying thank you for having this presentation. This was so helpful. Will JFK be offering more presentations around AAC therapy to kind of help build and expand on this foundational learning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I hope so. I unfortunately will be ending my time with JFK at the end of this month, but I think it would be a great opportunity to connect. And one huge source of just tons of AAC information is SWAC. And I'm going to mess up the name, but I think it's Statewide Augmentative and Alternative Communication. It's something at the end, but check out their website because they have tons and tons of resources as well as webinars that they put out throughout the year too.
Thank you.
Of course. And let's see, Wayla Moreau, my daughter did a magic show as a part of her talent show using her communication device. That is fabulous. Wayla, would you mind sharing a little bit more about what that was and how she used it?
Sure. She had a coloring book that shows blank pages, then uncolored pages, then colored pages. And so she used they call it the patter, the part that she spoke. She just pushed the button for each thing she showed, and then she showed it while it was playing. And so I've never seen anyone do a magic show with a communication device, so it was pretty cool.
That's fabulous. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's really neat. And having those pre-stored phrases can be just so helpful for many different AAC users to be able to especially present. And let's see, and trick or treat, that's really fun. And Mike Hoover, I can type to flirt. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sarcasm and flirtatiousness can be a little bit tricky over typing, but I think that emojis and other picture systems have been a creative way we've been able to add to that too. And dishes in the dishwasher. That's a great routine. I don't like to talk while I eat. That is so fair. It's nice to just enjoy your meal. And let's see, Mike, you also shared, I like my APR device the best, but the iPad is easier to carry around. Please have a device or board everywhere for kids. That is fabulous. I totally agree. And we should have all sorts of different core vocabulary. I've even seen posters in classrooms where a teacher might point to different core vocabulary too. And Lisa, let's see, any tips for a situation where I might have a single encounter with an AAC user, meaning a situation where I'm not very familiar with their system? This is a great question. So I think that really just asking the person first, of course, of, how would you like me to best communicate with you? And using those communication partner techniques. So slowing down, offering a lot of wait time and being patient are going to be the most helpful for those one-on-one encounters where maybe you don't know the person very well, but you're respecting their time and respecting their system as well. I would not recommend going ahead and typing out your message in their system unless they gave you explicit permission for some reason, but just being respectful of their time is a huge element of that. So those are great questions and great comments. And we just have a few more minutes, so I'll see if there's any other questions that come into the chat. Let's see. But I do have my sources here as well. If anyone's interested in reading up on more awesome AAC information, there's tons and tons of resources, both within the research field as well as accessible information, such as the resources that I shared just here. So yeah, okay, so I messed that up. Statewide Assistive Technology, Augmentative and Alternative Communication. That's what SWAC stands for. So that's a fantastic resource there too. And let's see, Mike. I was in a play with a speaking part. I had my parts in a computer for the sound system. I wore my iPod and tapped it when the sound guy needed to play the next line. Fabulous. we should all be using communication, no matter what modality it is, and we can use it in any sort of environment, in any sort of setting. So I love that you were able to be an actor in a play too. Mike, what was the play? Was it one that we might know? Of course. Thank you all so much. Okay, and I may stop sharing for now so I can see everyone and just say thank you again. This has been wonderful, and it was wonderful to be able to share with everyone. Thank you for staying so engaged. I know there were several polls, and we went through a lot of information really quickly, but you will have access to the handouts. And then if you'd like a certificate of attendance, you are welcome to go through and use the post-presentation survey. So thank you so much, and thank you to JFK Partners and CU Rancho School of Medicine.